In a sense, members of the community may not have been responding only to a single isolated confrontation, but also to a pervasive, corrosive, and deeply unfortunate lack of trust, attributable to numerous constitutional violations by their law enforcement officials, including First Amendment abuses, unreasonable searches and seizures, and excessive and dangerous use of force, exacerbated by severely disproportionate use of these tactics against African Americans.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Eric Holder talking about Ferguson. Joining us now, the great Patrick J. Buchanan, and of course, former GOP presidential candidate, former Nixon and Reagan staffer, author of The Greatest Comeback, all about Richard Nixon, by the way, a great book. There it is up on your screen. Hello, Patrick.
How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing well, thank you. All right, you wrote a great piece, Darren Wilson, Free at Last. I think, I don't know if you picked the title. I think the title is perfect. And boy, oh boy, this guy did everything by the book. He was an officer attacked by a thug, and he defended himself. And you would have thought he walked into somebody's house and said, find me a black young man, I want to kill him.
It was a moral lynching of Darren Wilson. As you mentioned, he was an outstanding officer. He's got an impeccable record. I think he came back from helping some African-American kid who was having a problem, and he runs into this character in the middle of the street who gets in a fight with him and tries to grab his gun and then charges him and is shot. He did everything right, and he was put through 6 months of hell.
And you know what else was in that Justice Department report? That the 6 witnesses who backed up Wilson's story, they called them the most credible witnesses. They were in sync with the forensics. They were in sync with Wilson. They were afraid to testify, afraid for their lives. There were signs around Ferguson said, snitches get stitches. One of them barricaded her door so she wouldn't get a subpoena. Another elderly man said, I'd rather go to jail than testify. What about the Justice Department getting to the root and the bottom of that, where law-abiding citizens were afraid to come forward?
I don't think the Justice Department was all that interested in true justice, in my view. Look what these folks did. What has happened is a number of people went into that grand jury, lied and perjured themselves in order to send a police officer who behaved correctly and was utterly innocent to send him into a trial and send him on to prison for the rest of his life, or even worse. No prosecution was ever done of those folks. Where was the condemnation of that? We got from the Justice Department sort of semi-exoneration of the hoodlum element out there that looted and burned and rioted and rocked police week after week after week, and were asked to understand it because they've got a bad policy in the Ferguson Police Department of handing out tickets in order to finance the city government. That's done all over America. I don't condone it, but the idea that this could cut loose and cause that kind of hoodlum behavior is ridiculous.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I want to move on to the letter signed by 47 Republicans. The Daily News, I don't know if we have that still that you saw at the 68 or whatever it was. The Daily News today with pictures of 4 of the senators who signed the letter, calling them traitors. The letter to Iran, to the Ayatollah, saying, hey, this treaty has to go through us, and the next president could change it. This is how the media is reacting. The president, in his snarky manner, said, oh, they're aligning themselves with the hardliners in Iran. What an interesting alliance. What about Nancy Pelosi in 2007? When she went to Syria, when Bush said don't go, she went there. She negotiated there. She falsely misrepresented what Netanyahu or whoever the heck the prime, I think Olmert was the prime minister. And when he found out what she told him, he was outraged. Why didn't that get the same scrutiny as this?
I think you got it. Well, we don't get the same scrutiny for what they do for what we do, but I do remember the Dear Commandante letter back when I was in Reagan's White House in 1985 to 87, written to Danny Ortega down there by the Democratic congressman. I believe the minority or the majority whip, Jim Wright, signed it. But it was a bunch of congressmen that wrote in, and we really condemned it. But let me say this. I think the Republicans made a real mistake in sending this letter. They appear to be, and it's almost unarguable, what they seem to be doing is seeking to sabotage any deal before Barack Obama's even brought it home. Now, as someone who served in 3 White Houses, I think the president's got the right to really conduct foreign policy, and the Senate, of course, has a right to to basically reject or not reject what he brings home, and also to lift sanctions or not to lift sanctions if that's included in the deal. But I think sending this letter was a mistake. They got 47, not all the Republicans. I think what they're doing is they're antagonizing many of the Democrats who are going to be part of their veto-proof majority if they vetoed the deal when the president does bring it home.
Right. Interesting.
So I don't think this is, Steve, this was wise. And I don't think, to be honest, it was wise to bring a foreign leader into the, to the State of the Union Forum. To basically attack the foreign policy and a deal the president hasn't even brought home.
Patrick Buchanan, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, you take it easy, Steve.
You too, my friend. We're coming back.